Kids have a new father. That's the text message I received. Not a phone call, not a face-to-face conversation, but a cold, clinical text while I was still processing the jet lag from an overseas deployment. 2 years I spent serving my country, 2 years dreaming of coming home to my wife, Sarah, and our two beautiful children, Lily and Tom. 2 years of holding onto the image of our perfect little family, only for it to be shattered by 7 words. My response, 2 words, I know. Was I wrong for how I handled it? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. Let me take you back to the beginning, before the new father text, before the deployment, before everything went to hell. Sarah and I met in college. She was bright, vivacious, and had a laugh that could light up a room. I was instantly smitten. We dated for 4 years, navigating the ups and downs of young love, dreaming of a future together. We married a year after graduation, a small ceremony with close family and friends, promising each other forever. Our first child, Lily, came a few years later, a tiny bundle of joy with her mother's eyes and my stubborn streak. Tom followed 2 years after, a boisterous little boy who kept us on our toes. Our life was, in my eyes, perfect. We had a cozy house in the suburbs, 2 dogs, steady jobs, and the kind of love that felt unshakable. I worked as an engineer, and Sarah was a talented graphic designer. We balanced our careers with family life, making sure to always have dinner together, to read bedtime stories, and to go on family vacations every summer. We were that couple, the ones our friends envied, the ones who seemed to have it all figured out. Then came the deployment. It wasn't my first, but it was the longest. 2 years in a remote, often dangerous part of the world. It was a tough decision, one we discussed at length. The financial benefits were significant, enough to pay off our mortgage and secure a solid college fund for the kids. More importantly, I believed in what I was doing, serving a greater purpose. Sarah was supportive, though I could see the worry in her eyes. We made promises to each other, to call every day, to write letters, to send care packages. We promised that our love would endure, that our family would remain strong. The goodbyes were tearful. Lily, barely 6, clung to my leg, asking why Daddy had to go away. Tom, only 4, just looked confused, his thumb in his mouth. Sarah held me tight, whispering "I love you" into my ear, her voice thick with emotion. I left with a heavy heart but a clear conscience, believing I was doing the best for my family. The first few months of the deployment were hard. The time difference made communication a challenge, but we made it work. I'd get up in the middle of the night to call them, just to hear their voices. Sarah sent me photos and videos of the kids almost daily. Lily's first lost tooth, Tom's hilarious attempts at riding his bike without training wheels, their school plays. I treasured every single one, pinning them up in my makeshift living quarters, a constant reminder of what I was fighting for. We talked about everything: her day at work, the kids' antics, the mundane details of life back home. I'd tell her about my experiences, carefully omitting the more harrowing details, trying to keep her from worrying too much. Our calls were a lifeline, a connection to the world I yearned to return to. We even started planning our first vacation after I got back, a trip to Disney World, a dream for Lily and Tom. Around the 1-year mark, things started to shift. The calls became less frequent, the texts more sporadic. Sarah always had an excuse. She was busy with work, the kids had extracurriculars, she was just tired. I tried to be understanding. I knew she was juggling a lot, essentially being a single parent. I never questioned her, never doubted her commitment to our family. I just missed her, missed them terribly. I started sending her more romantic texts, little notes of appreciation, trying to remind her of our connection, of the love we shared. Her responses were often short, sometimes just an emoji. I rationalized it, telling myself she was just overwhelmed. My friends here, fellow soldiers, would talk about their wives, their relationships, and I'd always defend Sarah, always talk about how strong she was, how dedicated. I saw a few guys here whose wives had left them during deployment, and I felt a pang of sympathy but never fear. Not for us. We were different. Then came the Facebook posts. Sarah wasn't a huge social media user, but she'd occasionally post family photos. I noticed a new pattern. There was a man in some of them, At first, it was just in the background, a blurry figure at a park outing with the kids. Then he was in a group photo at a birthday party standing a little too close to Sarah. Then, a few months later, a clear picture of him, smiling broadly, with Lily and Tom on either side, their arms around him. The caption read, "Such a fun day at the zoo with these three, family time." My stomach dropped. I zoomed in on the picture, my heart pounding in my chest. He was a good-looking guy, maybe a few years older than me, with kind eyes, but it wasn't just his presence, it was the ease, the comfort, the way Lily and Tom were interacting with him. It felt too intimate, too familiar. I sent Sarah a text immediately. "Who's that guy in the zoo picture?" Her response came hours later. "Oh, that's Mark. He's a friend from work. He's been really helpful with the kids sometimes." Helpful with the kids. The phrase echoed in my head, a jarring, discordant note. I didn't press it further, but a seed of doubt had been planted, a tiny, insidious worm burrowing into my confidence. Over the next few months, Mark started appearing in more and more of Sarah's posts. Family dinners, school events, even a weekend trip to the beach that Sarah had told me she was taking with just the kids. I felt a growing unease, a cold dread that I tried desperately to ignore. I reasoned that maybe he was just a very close family friend, a kind neighbor, but the feeling in my gut told me otherwise. I tried to talk to Sarah about it, to ask her more directly about Mark, but she'd always deflect, change the subject, or get defensive. "Why are you being so paranoid?" she'd ask. "Don't you trust me?" And I did. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that my wife, the mother of my children, the woman I loved, would never betray me. But the evidence, subtle as it was piling up. My calls became tinged with suspicion, my texts laced with unspoken questions. The distance between us grew, not just geographically, but emotionally. I felt like I was talking to a stranger, a version of Sarah I didn't recognize. My deployment was nearing its end. I was counting down the days, hours, minutes. The thought of being home, of seeing my family again, was the only thing that kept me going through the tough days. I imagined surprising Sarah, sneaking in while she was asleep, waking her with a kiss. I pictured Lily and Tom running into my arms, their faces beaming. I had it all planned out. I even bought a special necklace for Sarah, a delicate silver chain with a pendant engraved with our initials and the date of our wedding. I wanted to renew our vows, to rekindle the spark that I felt had dimmed. I wanted to put the doubts and suspicions behind us and start fresh. I knew the deployment had been hard on her too, and I was ready to make amends, to reconnect. The flight home was long, but my excitement was boundless. I practically bounced off the plane. I had arranged for a friend to pick me up from the airport, a buddy from back home who knew the plan. We drove straight to my house. It was late, past midnight, and the house was dark, quiet, perfect. I slipped the key into the lock, my heart hammering against my ribs, a mix of anticipation and nerves. I pushed the door open silently, stepping into the familiar entryway. The scent of our home, a mix of Sarah's perfume and the kids' lingering smell of bubblegum toothpaste, washed over me, a wave of nostalgia and comfort. I walked down the hall past the kids' rooms, peeking in to see them sleeping soundly in their beds, their soft breathing a comforting rhythm. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. They were so big. They had grown so much. Then I went to our bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open gently, my eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering in from the streetlights outside. And that's when I saw it. Two figures in our bed, two heads on our pillows. My blood ran cold, my breath hitched in my throat. It wasn't Sarah and one of the kids, it was Sarah. And it was Mark. My world, my carefully constructed, seemingly perfect world, imploded in that instant. The necklace in my pocket felt like a lead weight. The dreams I had nurtured for 2 years, the future I had envisioned, all shattered into a million irreparable pieces. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds, my mind reeling, struggling to process what my eyes were seeing. The betrayal, the deceit, the utter disregard for everything we had built, hit me with the force of a physical blow. I felt a surge of rage, so intense it made my hands tremble. But underneath the rage there was a profound sadness, a hollow ache that settled deep in my chest. My wife, my Sarah, with another man, in our bed. I backed out of the room, my movements stiff and robotic, as quietly as I could. I didn't want to confront them then, not in a fit of uncontrollable anger. I needed to think, to breathe, to figure out what to do. I went to the living room, sat on the couch, the one we'd bought together, the one where we'd spent countless evenings watching movies, cuddling with the kids. It felt alien now, contaminated. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling. I scrolled through Sarah's Facebook posts again, the family time pictures with Mark, the smiling faces of my children with a stranger. It all made sense now. The sporadic calls, the evasive answers, the defensiveness. It wasn't just suspicion, it was the truth staring me in the face. My friend who had dropped me off called, asking if everything was okay. I just mumbled something about needing to decompress, to get some rest. I couldn't tell him. Not yet. I couldn't tell anyone. I spent the rest of the night on that couch, staring into the darkness, the silence of the house amplifying the turmoil in my mind. I thought about Lily and Tom, my sweet, innocent children. How would this affect them? What would they think? How could Sarah do this to them, to us? The morning light brought no solace, only a harsh illumination of my new reality. I heard movement upstairs, then the kids' voices, their cheerful chatter a stark contrast to the darkness within me. I heard Sarah's voice, bright and falsely sweet, and then I heard Mark's, his laugh, in my home, in the home I had sacrificed for, fought for. My heart hammered with a fresh wave of anger, but I held it in check. I needed to be strategic. I needed to protect my children. I waited until I heard the kids leave for school, their enthusiastic goodbyes echoing through the house. Then I heard Sarah and Mark in the kitchen, their voices low, intimate. I walked in, my uniform still wrinkled from the flight, my face probably etched with exhaustion and pain. They both froze, their coffee cups halfway to their lips. Sarah's face drained of color, her eyes wide with shock and guilt. Mark, however, looked surprised, then a flicker of annoyance crossed his face. He quickly composed himself, a forced smile on his lips. "Hey man," he said, extending a hand. "Didn't expect you back so soon." I ignored his outstretched hand, my gaze fixed on Sarah. "We need to talk," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Sarah nodded, her head bowed, unable to meet my eyes. Mark, sensing the tension, mumbled something about heading to work, quickly grabbing his bag and making a hasty exit. He didn't even say goodbye to Sarah. A true gentleman, I thought, a bitter laugh bubbling up in my throat. Sarah and I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared countless family meals, where we'd planned our future. Now it felt like a battlefield. She tried to apologize, to explain, but her words were hollow, meaningless. I just listened, my heart a block of ice. She confessed to everything, the loneliness, the vulnerability, how Mark had been there for her when I wasn't. The usual excuses, the predictable narrative. I just kept thinking about my children, about their innocent faces, about the man who was now playing father to them. It wasn't just about Sarah's betrayal. It was about the desecration of my family, the destruction of the life I had built. I felt a cold resolve settle over me. This wasn't just about my pain. It was about what was right, about what I needed to do to protect my kids. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have exploded in anger? Would you have tried to salvage the marriage? Or would you have done what I did? I took a deep breath. "I know," I said, finally breaking the silence, looking her directly in the eye. "I know about Mark. I saw you both last night." Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She started sobbing, begging for forgiveness, pleading with me to understand. But there was no understanding, not for this. "You've made your choice, Sarah," I continued, my voice still eerily calm. "And so have I." I stood up, walked to the living room, and retrieved my phone. I sent her a text message. A simple, stark message that I had been composing in my head all night. 7 words that mirrored her own, but with a different, far more devastating meaning for her. I watched her phone light up on the table, watched her pick it up, watched her read my message. Her eyes widened, a fresh wave of tears spilling down her face. She looked at me, a desperate plea in her eyes, but I was done. There was nothing left to say. The text I sent her read, "The kids have a new mother." I watched as the color drained from her face, replaced by a ghastly pallor. She started to tremble, her hands shaking so violently she dropped her phone. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You can't do this. The kids need their mother." "And I needed a faithful wife," I retorted, my voice finally cracking with the emotion I had been suppressing. "But you clearly didn't need a faithful husband. You chose him. You chose to betray me, to betray our family, and now you've lost your place in it." I didn't yell, I didn't scream. My voice remained calm, chillingly so. I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up my service phone, and made a call. "I'm back," I said into the receiver, "and I need to initiate a full custody proceeding immediately. My wife has been unfaithful, and I have evidence." I glanced at Sarah. Her face was a mask of horror. She knew I wasn't bluffing. She knew the consequences of my deployment, the legal standing I had. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, emotional confrontations, and heartbreaking conversations with my children. Sarah tried to fight me. She tried to paint me as the villain, the absent father, the controlling husband. But I had the evidence. The Facebook posts, the witness of my friend who had dropped me off, and her own tearful confession. The court saw through her attempts to manipulate the narrative. The fact that she had moved another man into our home, into our children's lives, while I was serving overseas, was a significant factor. My military record, my dedication to my family, my steadfast commitment, all worked in my favor. It was a difficult, painful process, but ultimately the judge sided with me. I was granted full custody of Lily and Tom. Sarah was given supervised visitation, a stark reminder of her choices. Telling Lily and Tom was the hardest part. I sat them down, their little faces looking up at me, full of questions and confusion. I explained as gently as I could that Mommy and Daddy wouldn't be living together anymore. I didn't go into the sordid details of Sarah's infidelity. I just told them that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes have consequences. They cried. I cried. It was a raw, heartbreaking moment, but I knew it was necessary. I promised them that I would always be there for them, that our family, even though it looked different now, would still be strong. Mark, of course, disappeared from the picture almost immediately after the legal proceedings began. He didn't want to be involved in the mess, didn't want the responsibility. He was just looking for an easy life, a comfortable situation. Sarah was left alone with the consequences of her actions. She lost her home, her family, and a significant portion of her reputation. Her friends, many of whom were also our mutual friends, slowly started to distance themselves. The gossip spread like wildfire. She was isolated, ostracized. The picture of the perfect family she had tried to project on social media had been utterly demolished. It's been a few years now. Lily and Tom are thriving. They're still wonderful, resilient kids, and they've adjusted to our new normal. I've focused all my energy on being the best father I can be, on providing them with stability, love, and a sense of security. We talk about Sarah when they ask, and I try to be honest without being overly negative. They see her occasionally, but it's not the same. The bond has been broken irrevocably. I've moved on too, in my own way. The scars are still there. The pain of betrayal still a dull ache, but it no longer defines me. I learned a hard lesson about trust, about appearances, and about the fragility of relationships. But I also learned about my own strength, my own resilience, and the unwavering love I have for my children. So here I am. Was I wrong for sending that text, for my 2-word response to her 7 words? Perhaps some might say it was harsh, unforgiving. But I believe I did what I had to do to protect my children and to reclaim my dignity. I took back control of my narrative, of my family, and in the end, I found peace. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe for more stories like this, for more raw, unfiltered accounts of life's unexpected turns. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Tell me truly, what would you have done? I'll see you all in the next story.